today is building a fried chicken empire. He's not the first person in Columbus to launch a chain restaurant business, and surely he will not be the last. But the significant thing about Joe is not the quality of his chicken, but rather his highly innovative approach to attracting talent at a time when every business is suffering from a scarcity of workers. Hot Chicken Takeover provides meaningful employment to men and women impacted by incarceration. Joe expects to create 200 meaningful jobs by the end of this year. After graduating from Capital University in Bexley, Joe started his career as an investment banker. Today, he's an entrepreneur committed to sustainable community impact. In 2009, he launched Fresh Box Catering for Lutheran Social Services. Since then, he's built a reputation as an impactful serial entrepreneur. He serves as an adjunct at two of the colleges at OSU, the Fisher College and the Glenn School of Public Affairs. He also sits on several local boards. Please join me in welcoming Joe DeLoss.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ken. One of my first internships in college was with Ken and warehousing for him, so I have fond memories of sifting through dense file cabinets looking for updates for one of his books. Really grateful to be here. And today I want to keep my remarks pretty broad and succinct. I want to spend more time talking with you and answering questions you may have and informing the conversation by your experience. But quickly, what I want to do is share a little bit of context about our business, talk specifically about the best practices and strategies we've employed that we believe are transferable to other industries, and so you know that we're not just selling something that doesn't work. I want to share some of the outcomes we've created as a company in our space in terms of HR and company results. And so first, a little bit about our story. How many of you have been to a Hot Chicken Takeover before? There are some strong hands, thank you, but not enough. So the rest of you have some work to do. Hot Chicken Takeover isn't my first rodeo. I've built, this is, depending on how you count them, my fourth or fifth attempt at opening a small business. This business, on the heels of some of those attempts that worked less successfully, began in my living room. It was an idea to get back into the business of doing something and creating jobs again. And my wife and I took a trip to Nashville, Tennessee in the fall of 2013. We ate delicious Nashville-style hot chicken, which is the staple on our menu, and quickly brought it back home to start cooking for friends. Our living room turned into dinners out in the community, ultimately to a location in Old Town East, due east of downtown, where you can see here in this photo, we literally set up and tore down a restaurant every Saturday and then every Saturday and Sunday, serving people outside of a window where we had duct taped chicken window over top, where my wife was the cashier. We would line people up, usually for 90 minutes to 2 hours, just to get their order in. We did that for 6 months prior to moving in to the North Market. And so that was in April of 2014 that we began. Since then, we've grown pretty significantly. We have 3 restaurants open right now, about 150 team members, and have been growing at a really rapid clip year over year since we began. We grew from the beginning from pretty humble beginnings. But the intention of our business was not always just about chicken. And so what you're looking at here is actually our logo, our brand mark. As you can tell, it's a chicken with an asterisk. That asterisk to us is what really connotes the bigger part of Hot Chicken's story. And so it's not so much what we do, but it's how we do it. Our business has been committed from the beginning to creating job opportunities for men and women that have what we call as alternative resumes. And so people that have been impacted from a kind of adversity that has wound them up in the criminal justice system. This pool for us represents anywhere from 50 to 60% of our team. And broadly, as an entry-level employer, the large percentage of our team are also just men and women that have faced some adversity in their life, that are going forward towards a career in an entry-level industry like food service. I also believe our work is transferable to the manufacturing, logistics industry, and broader hospitality categories. From the beginning, we've grown to become a very substantial team. Our team is tied together by a value set that is nothing about being a less than category of folks. Our team works incredibly hard, and it's a hard place to work. If you can imagine those types of lines, when you're working through a lunch rush at Hot Chicken, you are kind of nose to the grindstone. So we have a broad team of people that have a tremendous amount of character and a tremendous amount of work ethic to pull off what they pull off every day in serving our guests. But it's this environment where we've learned quite a few impactful lessons about what has categorically made our business experience different than others in our industry. And if you talk to anybody that plays in the entry-level labor game, as Ken alluded to in his introduction, people are really having trouble. They're having trouble finding the right people. They're having trouble keeping the right people. These are problems that, of course, we experience, but we experience them in a different way. And so the first lesson I want to share from our experience is about our dish tank. And so we often talk to employers about figuring out what their dish tank is. No matter who you are on our team, everybody starts in the same place on our dish tank. So whether it's the new VP of operations that just onboarded onto our team, his first shift's dish tank. New crew members that might aspire to be in our front of house working on our cash register, also our dish tank. But this becomes a shared experience for us. It also prevents our company from ever having to invest in automatic dishwashers, which is a significant expense if you're building new restaurants. But it becomes an experience that on somebody's first day, when they're back on the dish tank, and when you fry chicken and cover chicken in spicy, hot Nashville-style paste, dishes take a lot of elbow grease to deal with a lot of grease. And so our team, this has become a unified experience. But it also means no matter who you are on our org chart, whenever there's a dish to be done, it means you're willing to do it. And this is one thing that has created an experience on our team that means we're one team, no matter who you are, and something that's carried through. And so I challenge kind of everybody and other employers regularly, think about what this experience looks like for them. It might be cleaning restrooms. It might be picking trash off the ground, doing groundskeeping, but it's an experience that everybody can have and share, and it's been very impactful for us. The other we've learned is that many employers, employees in our space that have had other entry-level jobs can never point to any positive job experience they've had. And so if you ask people, like, what's your favorite memory on a job? Or who is your favorite boss? And people can't answer these questions, it's a problem with today's workforce. And so for us, we know that a piece of that has been about people not knowing how they're going to grow and develop in their business. No matter who you are, people care about growth and opportunity. That's something that's become a really intrinsic value for Hot Chicken Takeover. And so when our team members grow on, they see a very clear kind of path through our work environment. From the earliest of positions, which is on the dish tank as you're training, all the way through more difficult positions in our environment, like hosting the restaurant, where you will be the first and last impression that a guest might have before they leave. And so as this is laid out, it becomes a very objective criteria for which people can grow and earn additional income. It's made a really significant difference for us. And it reduces a lot of the strain on our managers to determine who is eligible for growth. And so we don't hire people for front of house. We don't hire people for back of house. They start all at the beginning of this module and get to grow through there. People can move also at their own pace. And so when you have a crazy ambitious team member that is eager to grow and is checking off that responsibility, they can move very, very quickly. So the other piece of the puzzle for us is around benefits. Often when we think of benefits in a professional setting, we think of healthcare, 401ks, stock option plans. All of these benefits have relevance into our environment as well, particularly as our administrative and professional team grow. But when you're thinking about an entry-level employee, somebody who's operating on a check-to-check basis, or at best a few checks to a few checks basis, you have to really reimagine what benefits might look like. How, as an employer, can we contribute to somebody's success as they move forward, regardless of who that is? And for us, what we've realized is a 401k doesn't make a lot of sense to somebody working for minimum wage plus $5 to $10 an hour. And so our benefit package is a lot more informed by that experience somebody might have as they're moving check to check. And so instead of a 401k, we provide matched savings accounts. And so as our team members are making investments in their future, whether it's the stability of housing, stability of transportation, education to further their credentials, the company is matching those. Just because it comes up very tactically in a lot of Q&As, I'll just share what we do. We match up to $600 per year for all team members at a 2-to-1 ratio. So if they're investing $2 in a transportation solution for themselves, we'll invest $1 up to $600. It seems like a nominal number, but the reality is for many of our team members, we've contributed to their first vehicle, to their first housing, to getting ahead on utility bills that might be working against them because of a past mistake, but some really relevant benefits that move it forward. The other big piece we do, we connect with credit unions to make sure that our team members have access to banking. When you're working with a significant amount of folks that have been unbanked or have had poor credit history in the past, they've been excluded from that system almost altogether. And so through a credit union relationship, we use Kemba here locally, we can get almost all of our team members banked. These small kind of improvements in access to somebody can make a really significant difference. The last financial benefit that we offer that's gone a really far way is offering cash advances to our team members. We used to do that internally. We now use a vendor to provide that. Oftentimes, a small cash advance means the difference of somebody's family eating, the difference of their rent being on time, their car note being on time. But as you get to be part of these types of milestones for a team member and invest in their stability in that way, it makes a significant difference. And if I've come to know anything through this work, and prior to Hot Chicken had done this work for about seven years, and so with a decade of experience in this space of integrating the best components of workforce development into a for-profit business, what we've learned is that if people are experiencing instability in their lives, they will experience instability at work. And I think it was a notion of it as employers to say, check all that personal baggage at the door. It's pretty difficult to do. It's pretty difficult for me to do. If I have something going on at my house with my children, to just leave that at the door and expect that not to impact my work. Even harder to do if that instability is not about a kid who can't kick the ear infection and it's about your kid not eating. And so fundamentally, I think we've informed our benefits package by that experience. The last piece of our puzzle is to provide really relevant and frequent feedback. If somebody's working on a very short time horizon as an entry-level employee, a 12-month performance review isn't particularly pertinent, though it is what most employers do. If somebody's worried about 2 weeks ahead to that next check period, or that next milestone, or that next promotion, kicking their annual performance review tied to growth in the business is pretty disconnected. And so at Hot Chicken, we do performance reviews every 60 to 90 days with documented feedback. It works out to be a 30 to 45-minute coaching session with every team member by their managers. The other piece of that is in real time, as we find meaningful moments to coach and develop team members, they're getting documented notes on the job. This makes a huge difference to team members knowing where they stand as an employee and also where their next opportunity for growth is. And so through the years, the state of employment in our industry has consistently gotten worse. So this is a list of statistics specifically to restaurants, hospitality, and accommodation by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. As you can see, a pretty steady climb over the last 7 or 8 years of turnover increasing. In our industry, turnover accounts for generally a $3,000 to $5,000 cost of soft cost associated every time you're turning a body through your work environment. Things aren't getting better. When you look at specifically to quick service food or fast casual food, these numbers are generally at 120, 150% per year. Manufacturing right now, very similar state. As our business has grown, so at 2017 at year end, this was what our turnover was, 34%. With a workforce that many people in the community believe is less than, or a team member that represents a liability in some way. What we've known is it's not just who we hire, but also how we hire them, as you think through the work environment we're trying to build. But this turnover is an incredibly low number in our segment, but also a really great indicator of the type of service continuity and support our customers experience as guests. And so we know this is a significant piece of the puzzle as it relates to our customer experience, our business's overall growth and stability, but ultimately a number we want to maintain. And ultimately why we think that asterisk on our logo is something that's not just to be relegated to a chicken company, but rather an opportunity for other businesses to start employing and imagining a different way. We got a pretty special team of people and a lot of personality in our environment, but it has definitely converted a run-of-the-mill restaurant concept into an experience that's really captivating to customers and a community, and has become a significant differentiator for us. And so we can't imagine this business not working the way it has with our team. And so oftentimes I get the question of, as your business grows, will you do less of that hiring thing you do? Or speaking of our employment strategy as kind of a warm, fuzzy, charitable thing, often with a lot of sympathy. But what we know is what we do is not charitable or sympathetic. What we do is an integrated part of our business that makes a significant difference. And so I hope as we grow, we can continue to validate that message and share with other employers the opportunity it has. We know our business is strong because our people are strong. I'd love to answer questions or speak to you if there are ways you think this might be pertinent to your work environments. Thanks so much for having us. Yes.
Do you have support programs like EAP and budgeting and money management, those sorts of things?
The question was, do you have support programs like an EAP or budgeting support? We do, and so we think about our HR team a little unconventionally. And so when we talk about employee benefits or earned benefits, it is a broad category of services, as we mentioned, and very much think about that as an employee assistance program really informed by the experience of who our workforce is. And so it is not, we don't have a third-party EAP right now. I think someday if an entrepreneur got bored frying chicken, they might create an EAP that they could offer to other employers, but we're not there yet. But so that is a piece of that. The other kind of components, I mentioned a lot of the financial stability type components. We do offer budgeting support, but we also have a lot of benefits associated with mental health, issues of recovery, issues necessitating counseling. When somebody has been living at a low income level in the community and relying on social services, often what you find is it unfortunately is a process that can strip some dignity out of that experience. And so if you have a need for your family and that need turns into waiting in line for 4 hours at a community service office or a government office, these are really difficult benefits to obtain. And so a lot of the ways we think about our HR environment is how do we offer a more discretionary, higher quality benefit that accommodates the same need? And so instead of sending somebody through a counseling service where they might have to wait a month for support, we've negotiated vendor relationships so we can get somebody access within 24 hours. And when somebody's dealing with crisis, that's really going to affect their stability at work, you don't want somebody to wait for a month. And so, yeah, to your point, we've in-housed most of those things. As our business has grown and we've had a little bit more economies of scale, we've been able to find vendors to provide some needs as well. But great question.
That 34%, what time frame do they tend to leave in?
Yeah, great question. So of our turnover, what's kind of the spread of tenure of how fast people go? And so our average tenure in terms of overall employment right now floats around like 12 to 15 months on a rolling basis. And so we're keeping people for a long time, but that's the average. What we see for most of our turnover is that turnover is happening within a 2 to 3 month basis. And so I will tell you, strategically as a company, we're trying to improve the quality of our onboarding and early vetting of candidates to reduce that early turnover or to speed it up in some ways. We'd rather get people out in 2 weeks before they start leveraging a lot of resources. And I say that, and it's easy to kind of correlate the dollar for dollar savings of getting somebody out sooner. But what we've also found in our environment, if somebody doesn't fit from a value alignment with our work environment, they become more impactful from almost a viral perspective on other team members. About 40% of our team are men and women that have been affected by issues of addiction in their past. And so you get the wrong team member in who's saying all the right things to their social service partner for a referral, but is still in active stage of addiction. That poses a safety risk to our environment too. So we take those things really seriously. But another mention of that turnover number is part of our turnover is what we consider non-regrettable. And so there are team members who have come to us on day one and say, I want to be a commercial driver and I want to get my license and I want to use this job while I can go through that school program or credentialing program, to which we really sign off on, and we actually invest resources to support somebody in those type of ambitions. But what we found is when those people are turning over, it doesn't hurt us in the same way because they're going out the door with their head held high. They become a great example for other team members. Makes a big difference. Great.
What about your story made you think of this?
Yeah, I did share a lot of context about where I was at before I started the business, but the question is kind of, how did you imagine this? Quick context for me, I've had more privilege in my life than I can count. I grew up in a household primarily in kind of middle income suburbs and had always engaged with community service, had never been, as a volunteer, had never been a recipient of much service. But as I grew through kind of my life and that volunteering thread became a kind of a core tenet, the other core tenet that formed was entrepreneurship. Since the 4th grade, I've found ways to make my own money. In college, actually the person that connected Ken and I at the very first time gave me kind of a field of study of social entrepreneurship to say these things were integrated. And so as I started to build relationships with people that had a different experience than I started to get a lot of information about how terrible entry-level jobs were. And a lot of it was around clear expectations, around opportunities for growth, around managers that would pick favorites and all of those things. And so the first time this really came to life was in a business called Fresh Box Catering that I built for Lutheran Social Services. And really over the last 10 years, it's evolved. But I think what it boiled down to was, as a company, I know that if I'm going to pay you more, we have to get more value. And so we have to keep thinking about how do we align compensation with increases in responsibility. And so an exercise I often encourage employers to do is don't think about the positions you have, but think about the tasks that need completed in your environment. And so if that's a manufacturing environment, it's easy to think down through the task on a line. But what we've done, both for our own company and other companies, is we write down every one of those tasks on a Post-it note. And ultimately, we get them back to a dry erase board where we start sticking those Post-it notes and grouping them in spheres of responsibility. And so a good example for us to differentiate is around the amount of quality assurance that might have to happen for a job. And so if you are doing dishes for us, dishes are a very important job. It's about the sanitation and safety of our customers, but a dish is going to be held and managed by 2 to 3 people before it ever turns into a customer service issue. And so there's a lot of quality assurance. If you're a host or a cashier in our restaurant, you are a gatekeeper for a customer service experience with no quality assurance. And so we want to make sure that those team members are people that can perform at a higher level. And so you'll see something like a crew 3 position is a host. Crew 1 is a dish tank, but that's the way we've broken them out. As a food service operator, it also means that all of our team members are cross-trained. The more they're cross-trained, the more they get paid. And so when there's a call off on a Friday afternoon before we're about to serve 200 people in an hour, we got to make sure that we can grab somebody and put them into different positions. And so that's really where that origin has been, and through a lot of trial by fire. Great question. Yeah.
When you first started this, how did you initially reach out to this population with alternative resumes, as you said? What organizations did you look to find these folks?
That's great. So, and I'll answer that question about where we've found many of our candidates, but I'll also share kind of a little bit more broad best practice on referrals in case anybody else is considering the work. So for us, I've been at it for a while, over a decade in the social service or social enterprise space, so I had a lot of relationships. When Hot Chicken started, like many businesses, I called on my friends and family to help staff that restaurant. Thankfully, I have a lot of friends that were also affected by incarceration in the past from previous businesses I've tried to launch. And so from the very beginning of Hot Chicken, we had that perspective and mindset shared, which was really important. There are a lot of community agencies that are working around reentry. Social service agencies like Lutheran Social Services or Faith Mission or Alvis House or Goodwill that are all working with communities of people that have faced a lot of adversity as they come back to work. Those are a great place to start. What I'll tell you is the way those organizations are funded and the outcomes they have to work towards often become competing to find the right kind of staff. And so what we've worked a lot with our community partners is setting a really clear guardrail set to say these are the types of candidates that will be successful in our environment, so that what doesn't happen is just a social service agency kind of throwing pasta against the wall to see what sticks. Because as a small business, we just can't handle that much. What we've done further beyond those social service kind of referral partners is we incentivize our team to make referrals. In many cases, we actually haven't had an incentive in place, and just because we've become an employer of choice, our employees are saying to their friends, sometimes the friends that they've been incarcerated with, other times they're friends from their neighborhood, hey, when you get out, you've got to call and try to get a job with Hot Chicken. They'll take care of you or whatever. And so that's made a really significant difference. Our kind of referral pipeline is about a third partner agencies, a third internal referrals, and a third more conventional job postings and marketing that we've done. But that's made a big difference. Thanks so much for having us. Really appreciate the opportunity to share.